Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 at 1:15 in the afternoon. We're back from lunch and we're starting our afternoon to have an introduction to Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport. I think we've never had you, and I don't think we've ever taken testimony in 20 years I've been here from anyone from the airport, and I think it's a big economic driver for the state of Vermont. For the state of Vermont. For us, for the state of Vermont. For us, for the state of Vermont. And so thought it was Jeff had reached out and if they could come in. I thought it was a great idea. So welcome, glad to have you here. I think before we start with you and get your introductions from you, we'll introduce ourselves to you so you know who's around the table. John?
My name is Jonathan Cooper. I live in Pownell, the Bennington 1 district, and that also includes Stamford, Searsburg, Reedsboro, and Woodford.
Emily Harris-Duncan, representing the Deerfield Valley, Wilmington, Leadingham, and Halifax.
Herb Watson, representing Bristol, Lincoln, Moncton, and Starksville, and Madison King.
I'm Abby Duke. I represent parts of the new and old North End, Burlington.
Edie Branning, representing Jericho and Underhill, and the vice chair of the committee.
Mike Marcotte, representing Coventry, Irisburg, Newport's Town, Troy J. Westfield, Lowell, and Eden, and chair of the committee.
Kirk White, represent Bethel, Rochester, Stockbridge, and Hancock, and I'm the ranking member.
Monique Priestley, Bradford, Greeley, Westbury.
Michael Booton, Berry City.
Tony Miklas, Milton, representing most of Milton and a little bit of Georgia.
And of course, the most important person.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Dave, you can introduce yourself as well.
Oh, cute. Dave Bosch, Rutland 2, which is Wallingford and Clarendon, West Rutland, and both town. My apologies for delay.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Excellent. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Jeff Bartley. I'm the Director of Innovation and Marketing for the Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport. I've been there for a little more than a year and a half.
So again, thank you all very much for having us here and having this introduction with us. I think there's a lot we can talk about and will talk about today. My name is Nick Longo. I've been at the airport for 13 years. I have a degree in aviation. I love aviation and everything that comes with it. I used to work for the federal government. I was an air traffic controller prior to this down in New York City. But my passion, and I'm also a private pilot, so I've been to many of your state airports throughout the state and beyond. I also love this particular airport, and I want to make sure that we grow this airport with the rest of the region. And that's kind of our motivation for being here, to share with you, especially this early in the session, to share with you what we're doing, how we're doing, and what's coming next down the pipeline. And that's kind of the overall theme of today. We could spend many days with you on exactly what we're doing, of course, but we have a lot of really great announcements and great growth opportunities that even just this short period of time in the last couple of months, we've had some significant changes. And I think this is just a quick snapshot of that.
So who we are a division or department of the city of Burlington, but we are an enterprise fund. So we do not need to go out for voter approval for any of our budgets and so forth. If we needed to bond, yes, we would have to. We are considered a small hub airport. And we see roughly 1.4 million passengers to and from our airport on a yearly basis. And that number is climbing, especially as we continue to rise out of COVID. One thing we like to celebrate is we are actually the second busiest airport in the region in New England in terms of total operations. So that's not just commercial. Those are, pilot flights, VTANG, VFA, Beta, cargo, everything combined. We are the second busiest in New England. So the airport is constantly moving 24/7. We are one of the largest points of entry into the state of Vermont for tourism, but also from a business standpoint. Roughly about 60% of our travelers are doing business when they're flying in and out of Leahy BTV. We like to talk that we are a source of innovation with Beta Technologies, Aerodyne as well, but also Curiosity. We have the Vermont Flight Academy and several other small training facilities at the airport. And then, of course, we are the hosts of the Vermont Air and Army National Guard, which we're very proud of.
Just real quick on the Vermont Air National Guard specifically, I think it's really important to note that one of the reasons we can say that we're the second busiest airport in New England, Boston Logan is the only one busier than us as far as takeoffs and landings, is because of the National Guard. Specifically their firefighting and aircraft rescue services provide that service to us at no cost. This is a $4 to $5 million annual savings, as well as a capital savings of $40 to $50 million just in infrastructure and capital equipment. So we cannot offer commercial operations without that service, and that's a very, very important piece to the overall budget that we have.
So from a commercial standpoint, we currently have 6 carriers. We have a couple of big players in Delta, United, and American Airlines. Last year, or roughly around this time, actually, we started service with Breeze Airways, flying to Orlando and Tampa. We have Sun Country, which is seasonal to Minneapolis, and that's a very full plane during the summers. And then just a few weeks ago, we relaunched Frontier in our market. They used to go to Orlando and Denver seasonally. Right now, they're going to Orlando and Tampa, and we're hoping that we might see some more Denver flights in the near future. And United.
Is going to Denver this year.
United is going to Denver this year, yep. We're very proud that we have the most nonstop flights that we have dating back to 1990. About as far back as we can go. We have 18 destinations right now. Some of them are seasonal, and we are looking to expand those and more so, particularly to the south, where there's going to be a lot of opportunity, which we'll get to shortly. But we have Raleigh, Durham, which we just started about 6 months ago. First time we've had that, and there's several other locations as well. And we also like to talk, we're more than just a commercial at Leahy BTV. We are the home of Aerodyne, Beta Technologies, Burlington Technical College, Heritage Aviation, Pratt & Whitney Canada, FedEx, of course, and then obviously University of Medical Center has their Meta helicopter stationed at our airport. Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and Vermont Flight Academy. And that's just a sample of what's on the airfield. We have many, many other tenants off the airfield as well that we could talk about for days.
And just this short list alone contributes to what we're going to be talking about later on, which is that economic value in the region. One in particular, Pratt & Whitney Canada. This is the busiest Pratt & Whitney engine repair station in the country at Burlington. And they have very specific engines that they work on right there. So we get a lot of international travel specifically to be serviced by Pratt & Whitney Canada engine repairs. And this is exactly a good tee up. So a few years ago, we did an economic survey and an economic assessment of the airport. This was all accomplished as part of our master planning process. As you can imagine, we have extremely strict federal guidelines on how we plan our airport, from infrastructure to capital purchases like our snow removal equipment to make sure our runways are constantly open, which we are extremely thankful for an incredible team that is there 24/7 to make sure that every single flight is operational. And as part of that master planning process, we saw, of course, that there's a major economic impact to really the entire state and the region. Right now, and again, this is a few years ago, we're going to be redoing this hopefully in the next year. Right now, our valuation to the region is just over $1 billion. Excuse me, rephrase. When we did the study, it was valued at over $1 billion. This was pre-beta. This was pre some of the statistics that we just showed you as far as the most flights, the most passengers that we'll get to in just a second. And that is a compilation of not just asset value, but also our annual economic impact as far as jobs are concerned, which is just shy of 5,000. I'm sure that's going to be larger than that number today, which is inclusive of that $170+ million in annual salaries to our region. And that short list is just a short list. We can go on and on about the businesses and the impacts that provide those state and federal and local taxes to our region. But you're also talking about jobs. This is a great example, this picture of airlines that, of course, have jobs located at the airport. Rental car industry is a $40 million gross annual business right inside the terminal alone, nowhere else. And we, of course, that all contributes to that annual impact. Again, with many different things, including TSA, the Army, the Air Force, and many of those other businesses. I think a very important component to our economic value is also the immediate value to the state airport system and the state tax system. Right now, through the sale of aviation fuels, we're contributing about $2 million annually to the tax revenue to the state of Vermont. It's really important that that tax revenue has to be used for aviation purposes. There's federal regulations associated with that any aviation fuel revenue has to be used for aviation purposes. That doesn't include the $35 million of other taxes that come out of the airport. Right now, we are reinvesting some of that money right back into the airport. Today, we have approximately $500,000 that the state does return back to us to contribute to our capital program. So it's a complicated system, and we want to make sure that we're supporting the state aviation program because these general aviation airports are just as vital even to our ecosystem as it is to the Vermont overall ecosystem. However, there are definitely some items that we can use associated with growing that number in future years.
And I'll also add too, in regards to the jobs, only 50 to 60 employees that are included in this 5,000 number are actual employees of the airport. The rest of it is, you're talking the Air National Guard, the airlines, their subcontractors, Heritage, everybody else. So who we oversee and we manage and work with is just 50 to 60, which is a pretty efficient and high functioning team that we're pretty proud of.
And that $500,000 is just a pin drop in the overall capital budget that we plan for every year. Our operating budget is generally around $18 to $20 million annually, both in revenues and expenses. Our capital budget, especially in the next 5 years, is going to exceed $135 million. I think that's pretty conservative too, because there's many other things that I work with the team on to make sure that we're growing this airport appropriately, especially in the next couple of slides as we explain it. This is really just a breakdown of that 5-year forecast of capital planning. A significant amount of that funding does come from the Federal Aviation Administration. And we couldn't accomplish what we needed to, whether it's terminal work, our aircraft parking positions, and the most important asset on our airfield is our runway. We wouldn't be able to operate anything without that runway. So, including this coming year when we're going to be fully reconstructing that runway and shutting it down. We also, even though we're the second busiest airport in New England, don't have the luxury of shutting down a second runway to operate while we reconstruct the first. Many, if not all, of the other commercial airports in New England have that ability to do so. So we have to plan extremely strategic. We cannot shut down our runway or our airport to accomplish these projects. So what do? We work 4 hours overnight. We reconstruct our entire runway over a period of time, piece by piece, repave it, repaint it, reopen it every single morning so that our airlines can continue their operations. That comes with a lot of detail and a lot of planning that the team is really incredible at. This is, again, a little bit more of a breakdown of that $137 million over the next 5 years. And you can see in that top portion where that breakdown really goes. It's not just airfield projects. It's not just runways and infrastructures. It's also to support a growing cargo economy that's truly expanding out of the airport. FedEx, like Jeff said earlier, is operating daily out of the airport, going all the way to Tennessee and through Syracuse. we want to grow that. There's other competitive cargo companies, not FedEx, but another one that is very interested in joining us as well. And we need to make sure we have the infrastructure to actually house that. Today we don't. So we need to make sure that just a simple parking position is available to them. Terminal project, we're going to get into a lot more detail later on. You can see that's pretty close to the highest, but pretty close to one of our most funding opportunities that we have in the next couple of years. And we always look back, especially this last year. Jeff and I were literally just talking about this, going, scratching our heads and pulling out as little hair as I have remaining to say, wow, we had an extremely busy year. We've had an extremely busy many years. We have another extremely busy year coming up, specifically with just our capital program and our terminal projects. But just adding 2 additional airlines to our industry, making sure there's competition for the public to really see opportunities for additional flights throughout that destination list is our prime responsibility to our community, I think, one of our prime responsibilities. But through the addition of Jeff and his team, which we're here with Alex as well as Jesse from our team, excuse me, I meant to introduce you earlier, we've really accomplished a lot. This is just a quick snapshot. The Eclipse, Block Party, community events, Olympians that we've had visited us, of course, our namesake, Senator Patrick Leahy, comes in often, and we enjoy not just with Senator Leahy, but also the congressional delegation and tours and community events, and making sure our airport is open to Vermonters and everybody to make sure they understand who we are and what we do.
Great. So a little bit of challenges that we're facing as an airport. Many of you have probably flown out of the airport. You're probably familiar with these gates 3 through 6 that I'm talking about, where American Airlines flies out of. When the airport was expanded upon 25 years ago, it was built for small regional aircraft. So we're talking about 50-seater flights. That was what the industry was doing. More flights, less capacity. And now we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing less flights, much bigger planes. And it's creating a constraint from a passenger experience and our capabilities. Right now, if you go to one of our gates, we have to restrict American Airlines about what planes they can bring in, because they're so large, they're abutting into our taxiway, and we don't have that necessary clearance. And so as we're going through the process, we also understand we need more amenities. We are going to have an announcement about a new concessionaire in a couple of weeks that we're very excited about. We got something fun brewing with that, and a few other cool stuff that we're going to, I'll show you with Project Next. But this is kind of what the airport is faced with, is we have, we'll get into some passenger statistics, very full planes. The planes need to get bigger. We're not necessarily going to see more flights, but we can't accommodate some of these planes with some of these airlines and their gates. And because of this, and we hear a lot about ticket pricing, et cetera, we are still losing about 35% of our catchment area is still traveling to Boston for their flights. We have a campaign out right now of why drive to fly. It really doesn't save the average passenger to drive to Boston when you add in hotels, tolls, gas, parking, food, let alone the carbon emissions of adding an additional length of car drive 4 hours to Boston. But this is a huge opportunity for us. And we know where these passengers are going. This is a snapshot from 2013, the third quarter of 2023, excuse me. Wow. The blue line is, the blue bars are what we are capturing out of Leahy BTV. And the red is they're flying somewhere else. A majority of them are Boston. Now, these are pre-Breeze and pre-Frontier. But you can see the Orlando Sanford, we're losing about 164 passengers per day. We're flying out of Boston, Albany, or other areas. So we look at this constantly. We talk to our airline partners saying, hey, there's some opportunity. Nashville is exciting. Southern Florida, we really need to continue to work with. But right now, we're faced with the constraint of, can we bring in these bigger planes? But they want to come. Last year alone, we did about 20,000 miles in the air going to meet with different airlines. We did go meet with JetBlue. We've met with all the big ones and additional airlines just trying to pitch services out of BTV because we know the demand is obviously there. We're not capturing everybody.
And this is really where we're headed as far as projected number of seats and passengers coming into this airport. One statistic or piece of data that we constantly use is how many seats are being scheduled out of BTV. You can see the dashed blue line there. That's our projected 2025 scheduled seats out of the airport, departing seats leaving the airport. And you can see they're higher than in most other lines there, other years there, which is really great. Obviously, not every seat is occupied. The objective for the airlines, of course, is to sell those tickets. But what's really important, and Jeff mentioned it earlier, is those planes 10, 15, 20 years ago were 50-seat aircraft. Now we're talking about 150. Our largest plane is 240 seats on a single aircraft. So those seats on a single departure is getting larger, which adds to our constraints in our terminal. But in 2008, when that 50-passenger aircraft, or in that particular year, the average seats on a plane was only 69 seats. Today, we're closer to 100 seats. So that's a really good indicator of, even though there's more seats scheduled, which is that top right corner, 1.05 million back in 2008, less of those seats were being occupied. Today, we have less scheduled seats, but a higher load factor or occupancy rate right there. So we're looking at a really solid year, a really good pinpoint too for 2024, which is that solid green line, which is also the top line in the September and October time period. Those were the highest months that this airport, in the history of this airport, has ever seen out of the airport. And I think the next slide or the slide after, we can go to the slide after. This next slide is, well, how many people are in those seats? That's even more of an important data point for us. The green lines, especially September, October, November area, both the dashed and the solid line, indicates a projection for the dashed. The solid green, that solid top line in September and October, the highest passengers we've ever had in the history of the airport in September and October. And not just the highest, 2008 was our highest year on an annual basis, about 1.5 million passengers. We're beating those records left and right, especially in the fall months, which is a great indicator of tourism and growth in the area.
And one thing to add too is, we hear a lot about, ticket pricing, et cetera. We just did a study with Expedia and looking at some of their market trends, and 40% of passengers are purchasing a ticket within 30 days of their flight out of Leahy BTV. So if you're planning further ahead, you're going to pay that lower price, but these flights are full. And so if you get, even I think it was within 6 days, it was 12% of passengers were booking their flight. Those are likely business travelers. You're going to pay that higher rate because of the load management as it comes to ticket pricing, similar to hotels and how they price out their rooms. So challenges, great opportunity. We have just started working on what we call Project Next, which is a congressionally directed spending program, about $34 million that we received thanks to Senator Leahy and the congressional delegation. We have other projects that are in the works, South Terminal design work, new general aviation ramp, and we're looking at new jet bridges. Some of them are aging out that we need to address. But Project Next is what we're doing is, if you picture the airport and where that American airline finger is, as I call it, the space in between the end of that building and the air traffic control tower, we're building a whole new terminal. And the goal is, long term, and I'll show you some pictures, have all flights on the second floor, all amenities on the second floor. You'll have the views of the Green Mountain. You don't have to worry about going to the south and Gate 15, et cetera. Which people, can get lost with pretty frequently. But we're really proud that we're doing it with a sustainable viewpoint. And we have some news too on sustainability later in the slide. We broke ground on it. We're building it with geothermal. We did receive a grant from the Northern Border Regional Commission to help fund the mass timber with that. And so we're pretty excited to continue to expand upon our sustainability. So currently, the blue is the airport you're probably familiar with. The orange is what was built a couple years ago when we consolidated TSA. So everybody's going through the same checkpoint. The average time last year, I think you said like 7 minutes to get through TSA, 4 minutes, excuse me. So we're really proud of that system's working. And now we're embarking on the north part, Project Next, which is the pink portion by the air traffic control tower. Once that is constructed in the next 12 to 18 months, then we will demolish the finger with American Airlines, and then we'll start looking towards the south again to try to move everybody up to the second floor. This is a long-term vision of what the airport will hopefully look like in the next 10 to 12 years. This portion right here is what's under construction right now. Viewpoint of Mount Mansfield. So the new construction is on the left side of your screen, where we'll have gates 1, 2, and 3. The new and existing line right here. And this is what the terminal is going to look like. And again, 12 to 18 months is what we're looking at. What I'm really excited about, and we talk about bringing people into the airport, is we have the old observation tower, and it used to be pre-security. When I was younger, I would go spend time at the airport and go hang out in the tower. So now it's post-security, so it's not as accessible. As part of Project Next, we are adding a third story to the terminal. We'll be moving our administration offices there, where right now we are beyond security, so we're not as accessible to the general public. So they'll have better access to us. We'll have a dedicated event space for 100, 150 people. And what I'm super excited about is this outside patio that's going to overlook the airfield. So you'll be able to come, watch your loved ones take off, have lunch. We can bring Cub Scouts there, explain the airfield. And it took a lot to get approval from the FAA. We have a great partnership with them. So we're really looking forward to, in the next 18 months, being able to book some events, maybe having you guys down for a nice viewing of the airport. This is what it will look like from the street side. Another portion of this project, over the years, as part of the sound mitigation programs, we had purchased a lot of properties. That program is no longer in effect, but we have this land, and we're working with South Burlington on a community path that will connect a lot of South Burlington in front of the airport, all the way through the various different neighborhoods, community gardens, things like that. And that'll begin construction, I believe, this summer. This year, as part of Project Next. Sustainability.
Yeah, so I think one of the themes as far as construction goes is making sure that we're building with sustainable products, with sustainable resources like our mass timber program, as well as our very first, at least by us, geothermal field to heat and cool this new terminal building. Not the first on the airfield, believe it or not. This is actually the third geothermal field on the airfield. The Vermont Air National Guard has one, and Beta Technologies also has one. But because of all of those initiatives and because of who we are working with, which is this program called the Airport Carbon Accreditation Program, all coming from what's called Airport Council International, which is a worldwide organization, the only organization that accredits and creates an accountability program for airports to reduce their carbon emissions. We just received our accreditation just a couple of weeks ago. We are the second one in New England. Boston does have their accreditation as well. It is not just a simple, here you go, here's your certificate, and congratulations, here's your certificate. Prove to us that you can reduce and continue to reduce and create policies and work with your partnerships around the airport to also reduce carbon emissions. As you can imagine, carbon emissions, especially at an airport, can be very complicated. There's a lot of things that we can control. There's many things that we can't control. It's specifically the aircraft and the fuel that is regulated by the federal government on what goes in there. But what we can control is our fleet and our fuel use, and of course, our building products that we use when we're constructing some of these large new terminals. I'm excited to say that we're one of the only airports in the country that now has many small fleet vehicles. We're still working on the large fleet vehicles because the technology is not just is not there for us right now to meet federal standards like our big snow plows. But our small fleet operational vehicles, these are the vehicles that are inspecting our runway, reporting to the FAA, working with air traffic control, and meeting the regulations of the FAA. They're all out there on the airfield doing this every single day with a fleet of electric vehicles. This is the first time in the history that the airport's had electric vehicles, and we're trying to grow that and expand that and utilize our regulatory stance with our partners to make sure they do the same thing. Beta is a great example, right? They're an amazing partner that's pushing the boundary of electric aviation in the world. And we have amazing partnerships with them. In fact, we charge our cars with some of their charger stations that you can see in this image right there next to ALIA, which hopefully at this point every one of you have seen or heard of, or maybe even visited Beta Technologies. We push the boundaries with Beta too by growing with them and making sure that they stayed in the state of Vermont, so that they can continue to operate and produce and manufacture these very specific aircraft right here. But that's what's contributed to our carbon program and our carbon reduction program. And we're going to keep pushing those boundaries. Like I said, it is not a certificate that says congratulations. It's a certificate that says, great, show us more. How do you reduce? And what is the next step in reduction? It really is jet fuel and aviation fuel sales, not just going to full electric, which is going to take some time and so incredibly exciting. But how does the big operators like American Airlines, Delta Airlines, United Airlines operate with sustainable aviation fuel that reduces significantly carbon emissions? And that's the program that we're going after. And we can't do it without these partners and this collaboration. And we're really pushing the boundaries. There's not many airports in the country that can claim, especially with our size, that can claim that they're doing the same thing. We're being looked at as the innovators of what we can do at small hub airports as well as large hub airports.
So with that, we'll wrap up the presentation. In the next week or so, the members of the General Assembly will receive a letter from us during town meeting week, March 6th and 7th. We're going to be hosting tours where we've rented buses. We capacity about 45, 48 per day. And we'll give you a very detailed tour of the entire airport on the airfield. We'll provide lunch. We'll visit, Beta, a good tour of the terminal and new construction site. We'll visit the fire station over at the Air Guard and a couple other spaces that we're looking forward to. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be your contact for that. But we are very excited to welcome all of you to the airport so you can really see the inner workings of what we're doing and how complicated and how innovative all of our partners are being as we try to move forward to what the future of aviation is going to look like.
And one quick last note from me is one organization, one entity, one platform that we haven't spoken about in too much detail is the Burlington Technical School, and as well as the Vermont Flight Academy. Part of my background is as I mentioned, through higher education and airport management degrees, as well as air traffic control degrees, teaching the next generation of aviation, not just with new aviation like Beta Technologies and everything that they're inventing into the industry, but also having that hosted right here at the airport and growing that educational community. In fact, Burlington Technical School is expanding at the airport. They're now putting in over $10 million into a new building so that they can start teaching the next generation of not just pilots, which there's a major international shortage of pilots right now, but also aircraft mechanics. I mentioned Pratt & Whitney being the largest mechanic shop in the country, Pratt & Whitney Canada in the country. They also need technicians and jet engine mechanics. And that's also happening right here as a collaborative effort with Vermont Flight Academy teaching pilots, with the technical school teaching mechanics and pilots, with Beta Technologies with the new innovation, as well as us. We need the next generation to make sure that everything that we just talked to you about expands our airport and expands our community involvement, so that one day when I win the lottery and the rest of the team takes over, we have that next generation. Yeah. Winning the lottery.
With the lottery. So that's our presentation. Happy to answer any questions that the committee might have. Questions?
I look forward to seeing Aaliyah landing at William H. Moore State Airport
Awesome.
anytime sometimes.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. You mentioned, or one of the elements in your slide was up being a top 5 small hub airport. I'd like to learn more about how that was designated. And the other thing I'd like to ask about is, given the growth I'm seeing, do you have any plan? Is it feasible to think that this may be a medium hub airport at some point, or are there constraints that you also documented that are a part of that?
Yeah, yeah.
I can talk about the top 5. We got nominated by USA Today. And then it was a worldwide vote. Last year we were number 8, and this year we're 5. And so that's how it came about, is we got nominated by a panel and then the general public was able to vote on it. So it's something we're very proud on. I think we beat out Manchester this time around. So
I know. Yeah. Not Manchester, New Hampshire.
yeah, so if you're watching, sorry. But yeah. And so medium help you want to.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let's talk about Manchester, New Hampshire for a little while here. So they are a competitor airport. Especially in southern Vermont, there's a lot of folks that go to Manchester, Boston, even Bradley. We even have a percentage of folks that drive to New York City to fly out. And obviously there's some nuances on how we market to those folks and how we bring them up to Burlington. But Manchester had a very serious dilemma, 15, 20, 25 years ago, where they invested a lot of time and effort and resources into a single airline. That single airline was Southwest Airlines. Well, the industry changes and lots of things happen. Planes get bigger, planes get smaller. You need to adapt to those scenarios and build the airport as best as you can, knowing what you know at the time that you do it. Well, when Southwest made that move to reinvest into Boston and take a significant amount of flights, Manchester went from a medium hub airport to a small hub airport. Portland, Maine is probably more equivalent to us, although they are much busier. They are a medium hub airport. I think what it's going to take to us grow there is not just to capture more than 50% of our market area and really get into the 60+%. Population is also a big concern. Now, when you look at just Vermont, of course, we serve a lot of Vermonters. We serve a lot of upstate New Yorkers. Clinton County is a big service area for us. A lot of upstate New Hampshire. But we also have just over the border that, anywhere between 10 and 20% of our passengers could be from Canada. And that's really where we see a significant growth over the years when the exchange rates are in our favor a little bit better, but going from Canada into the United States, one advantage that we have is there are a significant amount of taxes flying out of Canada that there are not out of the United States when you're flying into the United States. Internationally, I don't think we're in that market. That's not our niche. I don't think that's ever going to be our niche. Maybe some charter flights or once a month type of flights. And we are looking at even Dublin and London and things like that. But we need alternate methods of creating security protocols before we hit that. And then that will kind of breach that medium hub sector. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, like the Project Next, the whole rebuilding of the airport. You mentioned earlier in this presentation that there was a concern about some of the larger planes. So is that project going to allow for these larger planes to come in?
You got it. Yeah. So one of the restrictions that we've imposed right now is because of the length of the aircraft. It does sometimes go over very specific painted lines on our airport that they can't, or at least we have to restrict who can access behind them. By removing a portion of our terminal, our existing terminal, removing it and bringing it further away from those taxiway and runway systems, now we can accommodate pretty much as large of a plane that would service at the airport. Boeing 737s, which all of these planes we have today, we just can't park them in those particular positions. But those wide-bodied aircraft like the 737, Airbus 320, 321s, 757, 767s can and will be able to go to the new sector of the terminal, which is the right-hand side. They cannot do that.
I have one other question. I don't know if this is something you guys can really work with, but has there been any discussion, or I guess we are in this state, we are having a problem with finding skilled labor. And one of the things we're looking at as a state is CTE. And is there an avenue for some of these companies that are in aviation to connect with CTE so that we can produce the very people they're looking
Yeah.
for?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely will take, of course, a lot of collaboration to connect those programs. And I think specifically with the school districts that are at the airport right now, which are really in the specific fields of jet engine repair and piloting careers. But I mean, there's over 5,000 jobs at the airport right now, and there's a significant connection from high school age into a career in aviation that doesn't necessarily mean a pilot or an air traffic controller or a technician. But we need folks on our airfield. We need auto mechanics on our airfield. We need new electric mechanics. We need the folks that you see every single day outside of the airplanes loading and really creating the logistics that allow your plane to leave in that 30 minutes swap over time frame. So there's so many connections that we can make with our partners to make that happen, including ourselves. Yeah.
I'm just curious, do you do any sort of overt collaboration with other regional airports to try to fill niches, or is it really more about competing for the airlines to attract them?
Like commercial service airports
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, like with other, Manchester, for example, where I'm just curious, or just in general,
Yeah.
is there a culture of collaboration between
There's
regional
an
airports?
immense culture of collaboration, even though there's friendly competition and there's always going to be that. I think that's necessary. Director Ted Kitchens and I are text friend buddies, and we'll relay resources all the time, including I'll send some folks down there for training and offer the same for him. I recently was over in Portland, Maine to do the same thing, and work with their director to understand stormwater systems and how de-icing operations work a little bit differently. They have a really incredible de-icing program over in Portland. Paul Bradbury and I are saying, how can we collaborate? How can I send more of those resources to your plant that is able to recycle that product? So long answer to your question, but an immense collaboration of resources. And there's a Northeast chapter of what's called the American Association of Airport Executives. So we collaborate significantly, all over the country on all sorts of similar challenges.
Question.
So you didn't mention the National Weather Service. I know you host them. I'm curious what the synergies are, how it works well for you, and are there challenges with all of your expansion because they're.
I told you we were forgetting somebody.
We're definitely forgetting a lot of people, but yeah, great point. And they're actually one of the only National Weather Service stations inside of a terminal building. They used to be at the old ROTC building on Main Street in Burlington. And we just extended their lease because they were looking at alternate sites, but that collaboration was far too important to us. Our operations team, which is at the airport 24/7, looking at weather systems, they're not meteorologists, but if we can jump over to National Weather, physically go into their space and have a conversation with a professional meteorologist, it helps us to determine when to have our crew come in or when to have them go home. Or lake effect snow is a real issue for us, and freezing fog lately has been a significant issue for us. And having National Weather Service, we can't do that without them. And that partnership is critical. And that's just not winter operations too. We have all sorts of events that we collaborate with them on.
Just learned that PCIA was a few minutes late, so if anyone has another question before they get here. Well, thank you for joining us today. I think we need to make sure that we bring you in more often.
Yeah.
I don't think you really gave it much thought about, but when you really think about the airport, that has a lot to do with, you know, Chatham County being, is really the economic engine of the state. And, you're, I think, probably the anchor to that. Without the airport, I don't think, Burlington would be, as successful as it is now.
Thank you for saying that. And I think that's really important. One small little point there too is not just the collaboration with other commercial service airports. I also sit on all the state's Vermont Aviation Advisory Council. The general aviation airports are just as vital to our economy as well. That connection into and out of Burlington. Like I said, I am a private pilot, but you know, when I had my aircraft, I did not store it at Burlington. I stored it in Middlebury, and that collaboration and the businesses that are around there significantly help the community in Burlington as much as it does those other state airports. Yeah.
Yeah, all our airports are important for our communities, and I might sit on the advisory for NEK, airport in Coventry. That's been a huge asset for us as well. And there's a lot more that we can do with our airports, a lot more for economic development. So, thank you for coming in, and, I like the idea of being able to get down there during, town meeting week, and, hopefully a lot of us will be able to go down there.
And if
Yeah,
not,
that's great.
we're happy to schedule a field trip for you guys, whatever we can do to accommodate to get you guys at Leahy PTV. We'd love it. We'll introduce you to our new mascot too.
The mascot.
Mascot now. So, yeah. Errol the Griffin.
We catch up.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you
very
very
much. Yeah.
We